Hey everybody, thanks for tuning into the Crusher Trading Recap Show for March 13th, 2025. And yesterday was a crushing day. We had an awesome day with Tesla, NVDA, and a couple other stocks. We're going to get into those here in just a second. Hey, but do me a favor, if you haven't already, click the like button or please subscribe and you can get more alerts from us and learn the Crusher Trading strategy. All right, let's start out with the trade of the day. Yesterday we had NVIDIA. If you don't know anything about Crusher Trading, we trade the Crusher Trading strategy, which involves Bollinger Bands, Fibonacci levels, and a couple other things. So if you're interested, check this out. This is a highly predictive setup. We got probabilities that go between 70 and 80%. It changes often, but we do keep track of the data daily, and we do have about a 70 to 80% win rate on this strategy. It's an easy get up and go strategy, and let me show you here what it is. Here's your Fibonacci levels. We got price action. This is an NVIDIA. This was our trade yesterday. And you can see on the 5, we had a nice push to the upside. And right at the crush it zone is what we call it, the crush it zone at the fib levels here. We get a beautiful pullback. Okay, let's look at this at the 1 minute. And there's the 1 minute chart. I have these fib levels applied to all 3 time frames. And we take our entries on the 10-second. Here's the 10-second chart right here. So what do we look for on the 10-second? Forget the sell now signal I have up there right now. That is a test that we're doing that's actually working out pretty good, and we'll get into that more later in the month once we've confirmed that a little bit better. But here it is. Let me get rid of these candles real quick so you can take a peek at what that looks like. I always pull the candles off because really what we're basing this off is moving averages. You have the 9 SMA crossing the 20 right here. So this is where we're going to generally get a starter position. Okay, this is where we know that, hey, you know what? It looks like we're going to get that move to the downside. Now we have a 70 to 80% chance for a full move down to the 0 line, right? So we'll take that starter. We'll confirm it with an add-on right here once we get past the 50 SMA. That green line is my 50 SMA. It does come down. It retests right here. And you can either get in on the retest or you can get in over here. But we'll get in full size at this point right here. And now once we're in the trade, we no longer need the 10-second chart because the 10-second chart will fake you out almost every time. So don't worry about the 10-second chart anymore. Now we come over to the 1 minute, and this is where we start to scale out, okay? And this is where the Fibonacci levels come in great, and you can see we have a lot of price action respecting these levels. And we'll come in here, and I generally take my first scale around the 0.618, which is right in here, but lately I've been holding. And I've been holding to the 0.382, which let me show you here where that's at. Look at this in here. And the reason is I was checking out the probability, and once we get the move that we're looking for, the probability is extremely high that we do get to the 0.38, at least for the first scale. So almost eliminates the 0.618, you know, for the scale, okay? But if you're playing a stock like Meta or Tesla, you're going to get a pretty big return right at the 0.618. So you could take some off there if you're in a small account, but this is generally where I want to take it out. Now I have nice momentum to the downside. If you see that momentum, you can try to hold a little bit here, but this is where we're going to take our first scale. And this is our target zone right here where we're going to be out of our trades, most of the trade. And then depending on how many contracts you have on the options, we had 115 puts on this one here. You can hold your trailers for the bigger move to the downside. You see it does pull up. We do get the retracement at the 0.618, which is but the golden zone you call it, where we get the popular pullbacks right here. And we do get a deeper pullback all the way down here. Now this is a pretty big move yesterday. I was in my small account, so obviously with just 4 or 5 contracts, I had to get out a little bit early. But if I had 10, 20 contracts, definitely would have had some trailers for the bigger move to the downside. And that was our NVIDIA trade for yesterday. Let's get into Tesla. Tesla was also pretty darn good. Right here on the 5. Let me open this up here so you can see a little bit better. I had a couple different trades. I had the wick zone right here marked out. So I was looking for a 5-minute ORB, which we got, moved to the upside. Now here's the thing with Tesla. I have been keeping data on Tesla since last June, okay? Since last June. And what I know about Tesla is, if you look on the 5-minute candle here, let me open this up and I'll show you a little bit. This is what we call continuation to the crush it zone, okay? So you got a couple trades here, a couple setups. This 5-minute candle right here, okay, it's just a small little doji type candle. Okay, we got big wick on the bottom, another wick on the top. And what I do is I mark out the wick zone right here. I call that the wick zone. And I look for continuation. Now, what I know on my data is once we break that 5-minute ORB, even if it's a small candle, a big candle, I like the bigger candles better. Smaller wicks works out better for me. But this one did here work out. But what we do is we look for the break and retest of that wick zone for a move to the upside. And I have, believe it or not, I know you're not going to believe me on this, but this is about a 90% chance of hitting the crush it zone, right? A 90% chance of that break to the crush it zone on Tesla. And I've tested this back all the way back to June. And if you want to see my data, you just private message me and I'll show you all the data on this. This is a 90% chance. It is a difficult one to see and to get into, but once you understand it, it is about a 90% chance that we're going to hit the crush it zone. Okay, so here we have the 1 minute. We got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 candles in here. Here is my retest candle right here. You can see this hammer candle right in here. That's my retest candle. And we get this move to the upside. And this is a, what is that? It's about a $4 move on Tesla. Okay, so that pays really well. It's a short spurt, a quick sprint, but pays extremely well. And you can see here we get to the crush it zone, and now we have a crush it zone play to the downside on Tesla. Okay, so not only do you have the 5-minute ORB here, this is the one I took yesterday. I took NVDA to the downside, but Tesla also had a great move. This is the new sell signal that we're putting in here that I have been testing that will be ready hopefully by the end of the month. These are for confirmations at the crush it zone. Sometimes we go through the crush it zone and we do have an indicator, a signal that tells us when not to get into the crush it zone, which if you're in our room, check it out and we'll talk about how you can know when not to get into the crush it zone, okay? But here it is. Here's the crush it zone right here. Now what we do right here at the crush it zone, okay, we got the win on the 5-minute ORB to the crush it zone, and we know that on the 10-second here, we know that when we get to the crush it zone, we have a high probability, about a 70 to 80% chance of a rejection, some kind of reaction. And sure enough, we did get that. These are big moves on Tesla. And let me open this up in the 10-second. I'll show you exactly where we get into this trade. Takes me a second here. Okay, I'm gonna try to leave the candles in here on this one here and see if you can try to catch this. But here it is right here, right? You have, let me get this ready, right? This is right here where we get this crossover on the 9 over the 20. We kind of enter in here as a starter position. We see the channeling take place. We get below, okay, we get below the 50. You know, it does pull back. Hindsight 2020, you're most likely going to go in full size right here. Okay, we do get this retest off the ORB also for a quick move to the upside, so you can hold and you can get back in at the break of the 52. But look, we're playing probability, so you have about a 70 to 80% chance we're going to get a move down to the 0 line, which is to the downside. Okay, so once we enter into this trade right here, okay, you're not going to get stopped out. You don't panic when you get these 2 tower candles here in the 10-second off this wick zone on the 5-minute, you know, opening range candle. Don't freak out. You're not stopped out on your crush it zone yet. Okay, this is why we close the 10-second chart. We don't need to look at it. Okay, it's not going to help us anymore. And at this point right here, we go ahead and we put in, probably get in somewhere in here. We're going to want to get down to the target, which is the 0 line, and then we got that high right there. We got about a 2.63 risk to reward ratio, and you can see it does turn out. Where are you going to get your let's see, your scales right here? And like I was saying before, I want to get out most likely at the 0.382, which I've been doing lately, which is right in here in this rat's nest. And then we have another one down here at the 0 line. And at this time, you should be mostly out of your trade, and now you're hanging onto your trailers, waiting for a bigger move to the downside. You can see we do get to the crush it zone again right here. So that is a second crush it zone play on Tesla. This is number 3 for the day. And I said these set up every single day on one of the tickers, on one of the 7 tickers that we trade. We trade the Make 7, and that worked out again for a second time. Let's see if I can find it here in the 10-second. On Tesla, you can see if we get an entry in here, it does consolidate a little bit, okay? But this is where we just wait. You wait for the setup to take place. We get above the 50, and there's your entry right in here. You get the retest. So you get a nice entry right here for second move to the upside on Tesla. Now, you generally speaking, on my second and third trades of the day, I'm taking about 20%, 25% of my profits of the first trade, so I'm not going to go red. I don't want to YOLO the second one either because the first one worked. So if I'm investing 3,000 to 5,000 in my first trade, I'm not investing 3,000 to 5,000 in my second trade. I'm taking the winnings from that first trade and investing 25% of that into the second trade, which means I might only have about 2 to 3 contracts or maybe 1 contract on that second trade for just a nice little scalp win. Okay, there's Tesla. Let's go to Apple, and we'll see what we're doing with Apple. Really nothing going on here. We did blow through the crusher zone here, and we don't have an entry. I can just show you real quick on the 10-second roughly where this is at, and I'll tell you why we don't have an entry on it. So this takes place right around 10:35. So we're at 10:35 in here, which is right in here. And it's pretty simple. I don't have the zone in here. You'll have to get into the room to figure out how to put the zones in. But you can see right here, we're just channeling right in here. There's nothing. We have no break of the 50, okay? And just about on anything, when you're at key levels, you got to wait for that break of the 50, and you got to get liftoff. We call it liftoff is when you're peeling away from that 50, and you see you still don't get that for quite a while. You get a key zone down here, and generally speaking, you get that pass through the 50, the retest, and you get that move higher after that. So that's why we didn't take Apple, but Apple had a decent move to the downside. I didn't really have any kind of retesting on it either for the downside, so nothing on Apple. AMD, pretty decent trade. AMD, what I liked about that yesterday, and I didn't trade this because obviously I was focused in on our crusher zone trades, but I have this daily level marked out on AMD. Let me see how that shows up here on the 1 hour. Yeah, here's the level right here. So I had this yesterday marked out for a break, retest, and a move higher. And let's get into that here down on the smaller time frames. You can see at the open, we've been rejecting this daily level, and you can see it's kind of choppy in here. I don't know if you'd have taken one or not. You know, if you did, you could have maybe got some scalps off of it. And eventually, it does break. We get a little bit of retest in the 20 EMA right here at 1157, but I wouldn't call it an A-plus setup. But it does break. We try to retest it again here too. The level might be off just a little bit. Hard to say. Let's see. It could be off just a little bit there, but we do get some retesting for a move to the high side. But that is AMD. Microsoft had a crusher zone trade. This is where, you got to be patient sometimes. You wait for that entry, right? We're in here on the 1. Look at how choppy this is. Sloppy and choppy on Microsoft. So, you might get into this trade. You might decide here, we're getting some lift off. We actually don't. You can see all the candles are still touching that 50. You might try to get in right here with a starter, possibly. But we are quite a ways away from that 360 up there. And you can see as we get closer, we consolidate the 360, gets in closer. And that's when we know we're getting ready to break right here. And we should have it pretty soon. Let me get here, the 10-second. And there it is right there. You finally get your break through all this. These come together, and you get a break above the 50, above the 360, and above VWAP. And you get a little bit of a move, not much. So that was Microsoft. Nothing on Microsoft today. We'll just keep it on the charts for the crusher zone trades. Generally don't trade it. The main 3 that we are trading generally most of the time is NVDA, Tesla, and Meta. Amazon had a minor... Okay, we're going against the counter trend right here. So we did have a move off the crusher zone here at about 10:03. On the 1, we did consolidate. We had a nice retest candle right here at 10:03, and you can see it right here on the 10-second. Also, you get that move above the 50 SMA. Quick move to the upside, VWAP. You wouldn't have gotten the full move on this when it did not get to the 0 line, but definitely a crusher zone trade. So we count that. That's 4 crusher zone trades for the day. Get into Meta. Meta also had a crusher zone trade today or yesterday. Here's our sell now signals, which are working phenomenal. They are really, really good. I'm excited to start using these pretty soon. But like I said, we're still testing them, making sure everything is working, getting the percentages on those worked out. But here it is on the 1 minute. Here is our crush it zone. Takes place at about 9:57. And remember, with Meta, you do not need a gigantic move to do well. So if you're in a small account, don't worry if you're scaling out too early. You get that FOMO, like, oh no, I scaled out too early. I should have held long. You know, I disagree with that. I think as long as you're running and reading the technicals and everything is working out and you got a small account and you only have 3 contracts, you kind of got to scale out because a couple things. You only got a couple contracts and you're not going to overexpose yourself and look for the gigantic move and hang on all day. That's not smart either, right? And you also don't have enough contracts for a trailer. You want to get that money, build that small account up so you can get enough to have trailers to run, okay, throughout the day. So if you get out early, that's fine. You know, take your money and run. You're trying to build a small account. Here it is. We get above the 20 right in here. We get above the 50 SMA and EMA, and we get that move to the upside here. So this is a really, really well-paying position right here. And this was roughly, if you get in up here above, this is where we get lift off. We get float above that 50, right? This is a $5 move on Meta. And if anybody understands Meta and how well it pays, that is a phenomenal move. So if you were in a small account and you decided to get out, right, at the 0.618, that's still a $3.82 move. Or no, yeah, it's about a $3.82 move, a $3 move at least. So don't worry about it. Don't worry about what you missed out on. You're not going to get the full move. We don't get the full move. It's very difficult to get that full move, okay? So that is Meta. We talked about NVDA. We talked about Tesla. Oh, there was one more on Meta that I thought was worth talking about. Let me see if I can find it here. And that was a nice retest right here. So I liked this bounce yesterday. Not only were we at the crush it zone, but we had this nice bounce right here off the 100-day on Meta. So I was just going to mention that. So that was a good trade there. And here it is. We played that 100-day again. That break. Here's a retest. So if you wanted to stick around and scalp for the day, these are nice little scalp trades. And you would get your entries based on the 10-second, but that's it. All right, guys, that's what we have today. That is the Crush It trading strategy. If you're interested, check out the links below. I think you're going to love it. And if you want to see how we are claiming the 70 to 80% win rates on these, 90% on those ORBs, just check us out. You got 7-day free trial. You come to the room and you can see firsthand for yourself how we're doing this. All right, take care. Have a good day. And we will see you at the open in about 20 minutes.